fled. They think they've gone over to the Taliban and are now in hiding, and they are treating this as an insider attack.
Yesterday, the Inspector General's office of the State Department issued a report that concluded Hillary Clinton violated the Federal Records Act by not turning over all official emails before she left office.
Wouldn't it be great if somebody running for office said something, we could have an immediate reaction as to whether it was true or not? Well, we've trained this dog, and the dog, if it's not true, he's going to bark. Arf, 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 you know?
Nichols is our guest. Mr. Nichols is a man that I've grown to respect. He was a former member of the Bill and Hillary Clinton kitchen cabinet, if you will. He has a very rich history with respect to time with the Clintons. Mr. Nichols really knows where the bodies are buried. He's had a change of heart, of faith, he's a changed man, and he's now wants to tell the story of the Clintons. But more importantly, he wants to explain to everyone why it's important today and what we need to do to fight this machinery that is bearing down upon us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nichols is somewhat a little bit, not feeling too well right now, so I want you to keep him in your prayers. And anyone who comes forward with information like Mr. Nichols has, I would really like you to keep him in your prayers. Larry Nichols, welcome to the Hagman and Hagman Report. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, well, thank you, and thank you for the introduction. Gosh, I wish I thought as much of me as you just said. I guess the best thing I can say to people is when the question is asked, who is Larry Nichols? I was with the Clintons when they were first introduced to Arkansas running for governor. He was already Attorney General. The people that hired me, Mr. Whit Stevens and his brother Jack, they wanted him to become the boy governor. And so that's when I came on the case. And folks, I met him. He was, without a doubt, he was a challenge. Now, guys, I got to tell you, I was probably, this would have been mid-70s, so I would have been in my mid to late 20s when I met him. He was pushing 30. He wasn't quite yet 30. The young fool that I was, it was a challenge. So, folks, I'm saying this to you, boring you with this little bit of an intro relative to the background so that you understand. I live this day because of a mistake I made back then. I am living proof to anyone that be careful what you do today because it may come back and haunt you later in life. So be careful what you do. When I met Bill Clinton, I realized the first night that we had a fundraiser for he and Hillary to introduce him to the farmers from northeast Arkansas, the wealthy farmers. This probably says it all about Bill and Hillary. We had the fundraiser scheduled for that night at 8 o'clock. Bill got there about 7:30. Literally from the moment he got to the restaurant, y'all, I would turn around, he would be gone. And waitresses would come up to me and say, would you please get him off of us? Because he was running around pinching them in the butt, or he was talking dirty to them or something. I mean, this was mid-70s, deep south. So I did everything I could to keep him chained in or corralled in a little bit. 8 o'clock got there, no Hillary. Remember, we were holding up people eating. And the people came from northeast Arkansas, so they had a pretty good drive if they weren't staying the night to get back home. 8 o'clock came, no Hillary, so nobody could eat. 8:30 came, no Hillary, so people couldn't eat. And it was a buffet thing, and management at the restaurant was saying, hey, you need to get on through this line. So we started the line. Finally, about 8:45, here she came. Hillary came. I turned to find Bill, couldn't find him. He was gone. So I was forced to approach Hillary by myself. I had not met her yet. When I went up, I immediately noticed the first Hillary Rodham that I ever met. Her hair was filthy. When you got within 10 feet of her, you could smell her. She had hairy legs, hair under her arms. She was wearing a muumuu, that was just like a sack dress, and she had on flip-flops. And this was a semi-formal meet and greet for the prospective First Lady of Arkansas. Now, wow. That's bad enough, what I just told you, but as I got closer, I noticed around her neck the thing that still haunts me today, and I see it just like I did that day. She had a chain like the chain dog tags have. It wasn't dog tags, it looked to me like what you see today. Reporters have a press pass. you know, and it's attached to some chain. Well, this looked like that. But I couldn't read it. As I got closer, I could read it. When I got up to her, but that card around her neck on that chain said she was a proud member of the United States Communist Party. There.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't really say wow. I turned to her and I said, Miss Clinton, I'm not Clinton. You know, I said, Miss Clinton. She said, I'm not Miss Clinton. You can call me Miss Rodham. She's married to Bill, but it was a hippie thing, and she wasn't going to take his name. I tried to mention that card around her neck, and to my shock, she yelled out, Bill, get this SOB, she didn't say SOB, out of my blanking face. She was the first woman y'all ever heard use the F word, literally, and she screamed it out loud. This is Deep South, guys, in the mid-'70s.
In the mid-'70s.
In the mid-'70s. I wanted to crawl under a table. Well, I turned. I couldn't find Bill. I asked one of the people there, I mean, I was in such a state of shock. And this woman came up to me and said, Mr. Evans, you've got to get to him. He's in the woman's restroom with the waitress. You know, I'm just going, oh, God. I tried to send somebody to go get him. About that time, she hollered it out the second time, louder. Now, guys, when she hollered it that second time, I kid you not, you could hear a pin drop burn. And everybody was just aghast. I mean, everybody was just trying to breathe. I mean, it was horrible. Still no Bill. She hollered it a third time, and it was just so loud. And I promise you, folks, I promise you could have heard a feather fall. Well, Bill comes around the corner. I'm ready to call it off. I'm ready to call it quit. The best we could do was get a man I had not yet met. His name was Webb Hubble. Best we could do was get Hubble to get her out of the building. She left. We introduced Bill, and he talked to the people. And that night I noticed one thing. The one thing I noticed that night, Bill had this ability to win these dang people over in spite of what had just occurred. Oh, he had them laughing and giggling. The night ended. Now, y'all, that was the first meeting I had with Hillary Rodham Clinton. But he was going to be the youngest governor in our history if we could pull it off. And I want everybody in this audience to see as best you can that visual. That's why I hope I painted as good a picture with words as I can. And I was told that night by Bill that she hated bathing. She hated taking baths.
Oh.
Bill told me.
Wow.
I mean, because I thought she had been doing something and just had failed to take a bath and just got there in the nick of time. And please don't let her come like that anymore. So she don't like to take baths. And she didn't think it was necessary for her to have to shave her legs and her underarms. Men didn't. Now, that's the first visual I want y'all to remember of Hillary Rodham, who became Hillary Rodham Clinton. The next thing I want y'all to visualize, most of y'all saw it or have seen it, and that is Hillary in the Benghazi hearing when, basically, I'm paraphrasing, she said about 4 people that had died, what difference does it make they're dead?
Yes.
The way she said that, the coldness to which she said that is
Shortly after Obama's re-election in November, he carried out a purge of several generals and a 2-star admiral. Not only were these top military brass axed, but they were forced to resign or step down in disgrace by this regime despite a lifetime of service to their country. Here's a timeline in chronological order of the systematic removal of top military brass that occurred in the span of only a month. On September 21st, Brigadier General Jeffrey Sinclair was relieved of command and charged with sexual misconduct. On April 18th, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta announced that General Ham was being replaced as commander of U.S. Africa Command, or AFRICOM. Panetta gave no explanation for General Ham's removal. On October 28th, Rear Admiral Charles Goial, the commander of the John C. Stennis Carrier Strike Group in the Middle East, was abruptly removed from command and returned to the United States. On November 2nd, Commander Joseph Darlach was relieved of his command for alleged drunkenness. On November 9th, General Petraeus, former commander of the U.S. forces in Iraq and Afghanistan, resigned as head of the Central Intelligence Agency. On November 13th, amidst news stories reporting that General Allen, who was General Petraeus' successor in Afghanistan and top nominee for NATO's Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, was embroiled in a potential scandal involving emails with Jill Kelly, a socialite at MacDill Air Force Base. Allen has insisted that there was no improper relationship between himself and Ms. Kelly, but his career path to the top NATO post had been snuffed out. On November 13th, General William Kip Ward, former head of U.S. AFRICOM, was stripped of his 4th star by Leon Panetta, following a lengthy DoD Inspector General probe that found that Ward was guilty of lavish spending and extravagant travel. Doesn't it seem odd that after a lifetime of military service to their country, these 7 men holding some of the highest military ranks were all of a sudden, within the span of a month, accused of, not necessarily convicted of, scandalous behavior and summarily forced to resign in disgrace by Obama's regime? I want to show you some other information regarding these men that is not being discussed in the mainstream media, and how this information does not bode well for Obama and his regime with regard to the September 11th Benghazi incident. General Carter Ham. The dismissal of Ham is interesting because there are reports that he had assets in place set to rescue Libyan ambassador Christopher Stevens and his team, but he was ordered to stand down. During the Benghazi attack, General Ham was receiving the same emails the White House was receiving, requesting support as the attack was underway. Ham got a rapid response unit ready with the support of Admiral Goial and communicated that with the Pentagon. When he was told to stand down, Ham responded he was not going to obey the order. Less than a minute later, his second-in-command, Assistant Commander General David Rodriguez, arrested General Ham, and he was summarily relieved of his command. 5 weeks later, after the Benghazi attack on October 18th, Obama promotes Rodriguez, and Leon Panetta takes center stage in announcing that General David Rodriguez, the man who arrested General Ham for attempting to avert the massacre in Benghazi, would be assuming the role of Supreme Commander of the U.S. AFRICOM operation, a ranking position previously held by General Ham. Referring to Rodriguez's nomination, Panetta was quoted as saying, "He's a proven leader and a key architect of the successful campaign plan we are now implementing in North Africa." Regarding the Benghazi incident, the only thing I can say is he's proven that he will follow orders without question, even if they result in the deaths of the men under his command. That's not a leader. That's a tool for the regime. Rear Admiral Charles Goial. General Ham was in contact with Admiral Goial during the attack at Benghazi, and he agreed to provide air support and intelligence to assist General Ham in protecting his troops on the ground under attack. The plan was that one of the Special Forces soldiers located on an adjacent rooftop would paint the Libyan mortar team that was targeting the CIA annex, and Goial would provide airstrike capability. He too was immediately relieved of command, pending an investigation of allegations of inappropriate judgment, according to Leon Panetta. I guess it is now considered a dereliction of duty, or according to Panetta, quote, inappropriate judgment for officers and members of the armed forces to do their jobs and keep the oath they took when they joined the military. General David Petraeus. While Benghazi Gate was unraveling just before the November election, allegations of an extramarital affair with one of the most highly decorated generals is thrown into the arena of public opinion weeks before the election. Why? Could it be that in his current position as director of the CIA, Petraeus had damning intel regarding the events and motives behind those events that transpired during the hours of the Benghazi massacre? Could it be because Petraeus told the Senate and House Intelligence Committees on September 14th of 2012 that the mob attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi 3 days earlier was a spontaneous reaction of Libyans angered over a YouTube video, a cover story now proven to be a lie to misdirect us from the real truth? And that is that the CIA had an interrogation facility at the compound, and the compound was being used to negotiate arms deals with terrorist organizations. Is it a far stretch to conclude that Petraeus had detailed knowledge of military-grade weaponry being funneled to terrorist organizations like the FSA by the CIA through Ambassador Stevens to further destabilize Syria and Iran to facilitate the collapse of their governments so they could be overrun by the Muslim Brotherhood, just like Obama's regime did in Libya? Or how about this crisis to cover up a staged kidnapping of Ambassador Stevens in order to negotiate the release of the blind sheikh in a high-level hostage exchange? In June of 2012, Egyptian President Morsi pledged to secure the release of the blind sheikh. How could he make such a bold promise unless he was privy to the plans of the staged kidnapping? There are a lot of questions surrounding the convenient timing of Petraeus' resignation. For instance, it's been reported that the FBI background check he was having an affair with Paula Broadwell back in March of 2012. Isn't it odd that FBI agents would be reading the emails of the CIA director to his mistress, and that the director of the FBI, who briefs the president weekly, did not make the president aware of this? Assuming the president was briefed, what can we conclude based on the fact that Petraeus, director of the CIA, was open to blackmail and yet remained in that position from March through November of 2012, vulnerable to compromise? Could it be that Petraeus' resignation had nothing to do with an affair and everything to do with refusing to take the heat off Obama by publicly stating it was the CIA who gave the order to stand down in Benghazi? And what about the 9 lawsuits against Jill Kelly, involved with both Petraeus and General Allen? These lawsuits amounted to tens of thousands of dollars against her and her husband. In Trial Law 101, wouldn't this go to motive? Why isn't this angle being discussed by the prostitutes in the mainstream media? This would certainly go towards the questioning, if not destroying her credibility as a victim in this setup. General John Allen. After weeks of being smeared and his reputation dragged through the mud, Allen was cleared of charges by the Pentagon of allegations of inappropriate behavior involving Jill Kelly, which he denied all along, but not before being replaced by General Joseph Dunford as commander of NATO forces in Europe. In 1934, under fears of a coup, Hitler purged by execution at least 85 people, many of them military brass he feared were not 100% loyal to his cause. The Night of the Long Knives was a turning point for Hitler's regime, as it established him as, quote, the supreme judge of the German people. Since the Benghazi incident on September 11th, Obama has purged, demoted, or forced into resignation at least 50 ranking military officers. The Russian military's GRU, Foreign Intelligence Unit, presented a report to the Kremlin leadership in late September that said Obama removed one of the United States Navy's most powerful admirals from his command in the wake of Benghazi's 9/11, specifically because he fears a military coup is being planned against him. Narcissism is often accompanied by paranoia. Some believe the president manufactured his anger in the rush to defend UN Ambassador Susan Rice for her role in the Benghazi fiasco. The president stated he did not appreciate those who were besmirching the reputation of one of his appointees, yet he's been busy removing our top military commanders at lightning speed. Are we seeing the beginning of Obama's Night of the Long Knives? Would it be a fair assessment to conclude that before he can ensure the total destruction of America by surrendering us to global governance under the direction of the United Nations, would he not have to first decimate the military and replace patriots with puppets he commands 100% loyalty from? We are living in very interesting times. Please leave your comments for discussion below, and please share this video.
We were misled that there were supposedly protests, and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Have now fled. They think they've gone over to the Taliban and are now in hiding, and they are